Nation. The hobby is the people. Weekly news and interviews. It's your number one source. Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. Sports Card Nation.
Welcome to episode 200. Holy smokes, to be honest with you, when I started this thing 47 months ago in November of 2018, I wasn't sure there was going to be an episode 10, an episode 20, and here we are all these years later, episode 200, and I'm excited. I'm proud of where the show has come. I want to thank, right here in the open, all the guests we've had on the show. Over 180 different folks have been on this podcast. Thank you to all the people out there who listen to the show. Without you, there would be no episode 100, let alone 200. And obviously all our sponsors that make this show possible as well. And so just hard to fathom 200 episodes, but here we are. Got a great guest today, Jeff Owens of Sports Collectors Digest, the editor-in-chief, and I've got to know him pretty well. Got to talk to him in Atlantic City, and happy to, going to announce on the show, you're going to hear, I'm going to be doing a monthly column for Sports Collectors Digest, a magazine publication I kind of grew up in the hobby reading, and been around since 1973. Their tagline is the voice of the hobby. The tagline of this show is the hobby is the people. And speaking of hobbies the people, I'm going to do a monthly column for Sports Collectors Digest called The Hobby is the People, where I'm going to probably talk about someone from the hobby, maybe even you. So it's going to be really fun. Used to write, wrote a little bit for Tough Stuff, a couple other sports card publications that didn't last too long, but happy to do it again. And what I'm going to get to do with the columns is going to be something I'm looking forward to, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think I think and hope you'll enjoy it. But we're going to have Jeff on here shortly. We're going to talk about his illustrious career in editing and the sports card world, and what he's bringing to the table for Sports Collectors Digest as they modernize what they do so well since 1973. You have to listen to the interview. I'll tease you. Little known sports card fact about Jeff that he's going to tell you about. So with that being said,
it's time to start the show. Let's go. Time for our Hobby is the People announcer of the week.
Hello, this is Mark Hoyle, and remember, the hobby is the people.
If you'd like to be the Hobby is the People announcer of the week, do a WAV or MP3 file and send it to sportscardnationpc@gmail.com.
All right, time to give away 3 free grading submissions courtesy of SGC Grading, one of our great sponsors, to celebrate episode 200. Cost you nothing. How do you enter? DM or email us the following contest word, which is tuxedo. So DM or private message us on any of our Sports Card Nation podcast social medias, or email us at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. The contest word, which is tuxedo. Everyone will be put on a list. The list will be randomized, and the person that's on the top of that list after randomization will be the lucky winner of 3 free grading submissions. Thank you to SGC.
Like the athletes we admire, the Sports Card Shop is changing the game. We're not launching threes, bombing drives, or hitting dingers, but we have built a unique gathering spot for all collectors to trade cards, talk sports, play games, and watch their favorite athletes on the big screens. Yes, we've partnered with Panini, Upper Deck, Leaf, Topps, Fanatics, Pokemon, and others to bring you all the latest in sealed wax and singles. But the Sports Card Shop in New Buffalo, Michigan is much, much more. Our recent expansion brings collectible sneakers, Hot Wheels, and more sports and entertainment memorabilia into the mix. Our new Collector's Cave game room is the perfect place to throw a rip party, bring friends, rip packs, trade cards, play billiards, ping pong, shuffleboard, classic arcade, and Xbox games, all while watching your favorite sport on TV. Visit us at thesportscardshop.com. Follow us on social @_sportscardshop, or better yet, visit us in person to learn about special events, party packages, new products, and everything we're doing for you. The Sports Card Shop, connecting people, sports, and the hobby around the world.
Real happy to have my next guest on the Sports Card Shop at Moco guest line. I talked to him before the National, got to meet him at this year's National in Atlantic City. Great gentleman, and is going to be doing great things at Sports Collectors Digest. He's the editor there now, and happy to bring Mr. Jeff Owens. Welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thanks, John. It's a pleasure to be here. It was great to meet you a few weeks ago. And as I said then, I've been listening to your show for quite a while. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate that, as I tell everyone who listens to the show. And now you're on it, so you get to hear yourself. You're working on your second year, going into completing your second year at Sports Collectors Digest. You're not new to editing. You've done a lot of work with sporting news. I know you covered, I know in talking to you, you covered NASCAR plenty as well. I mean, what do you think? I know you're not new to the hobby. We talked about your collecting background. I want to talk even a little bit about that, but just so far, I know you attended 2 years ago in Chicago. Obviously, we just talked about the Atlantic City National. Just your thoughts on the hobby from how you used to know it to now where it's at now.
Yeah. It's been kind of a mind-blowing experience, to be honest with you, to jump into this. I collected a little bit as a kid, and I've been in and out of the hobby a little bit over the years, and then got away from it. And then I came into it kind of new a little bit, certainly new to the modern era of the hobby, I guess you would say. And I was really blown away by how it had changed and how big it had become. I guess you could say I came in at the right time or at a very interesting time anyway, because I came in just after the pandemic or right when the pandemic was still going on. And of course, things were just exploding in prices and interest, and all these new people coming into the hobby and investing in it, and was just blown away by what I saw. And that really excited me about getting involved again and running the magazine. And then my first big show I had been to in a long, long time was the National in Chicago last year. And that was an amazing experience. I was extremely impressed by what I saw. And to be honest with you, I was pretty overwhelmed. I've covered a lot of sporting events in my career and been in some huge crowds. I covered some NASCAR races that had 150,000 people there, and I covered the college football game that set the all-time attendance record at 160,000. And of course, we didn't have that kind of crowd in Chicago, but being inside that building with all those people and all those dealers and just wall-to-wall cards and memorabilia, it kind of felt like that. It kind of felt like a huge event. So that was a great experience.
The buzz and atmosphere.
Exactly. I mean, the buzz and the excitement and the enthusiasm for the hobby, and just the passion, that's what I keep going back to. I don't know that I have ever, sports fans in general are passionate about whatever they follow. But I think there's a great parallel there. I think collectors are the same way. And that's what I noticed in Chicago is just a tremendous passion for the hobby. People were really excited about it. They were excited about where it had come and where it was going. It was kind of at its peak, I guess, at that point. And so that was really exciting. And that really got me excited and motivated about running the magazine. I had been there about 3 months at the time. So that was a tremendous experience for me to learn a lot, to meet a lot of people, but also just to feel that passion and excitement and to get motivated about being involved in it and trying to contribute where I can. And then, we went on and went to Atlantic City this year, and that was a different show, I think. But again, a tremendous vibe, another tremendous crowd. I thought Thursday and Friday was probably bigger than Chicago, maybe crowd-wise. And just tremendous, again, great passion. We spent 5 days there, met a lot of great people, made a lot of great contacts, covered a lot of great stories, including the record mantle card. I think we did 2 or 3 stories that weekend on that. And so just a tremendous experience. And I came away just feeling like, this thing is as big as everybody says it is. And, again, the thing that really impressed me most, I think, was just the passion for the hobby and how much everyone who's involved in it, whether you're in it from a corporate standpoint or you're just a collector or you're a content creator or whoever, everybody's just got a tremendous love and passion for the hobby. They want to see it thrive. They want to see it succeed. And, not everything that's happening these days is good. There's some bad stuff going on too. And people have their different opinions about the direction the hobby is going and what's happening. But all that gets back to the passion. You care about those things, good and bad, because you love the hobby. And that's the thing I think I have taken away from my first couple of years in this.
Yeah, well said. And talk about 3 months in, and the Chicago National. At that point, we're sort of at the top of the crescendo of the hobby boom. Talk about hitting the ground running. We've seen things settle down, but like you said, these events, no matter where the hobby is, market wise or price wise, like you said, that's a great word, right? The passion. People are still going to pack these venues, and the love of the hobby will always really be there. You hear certain people say, well, the hobby's dying or it's on the downhill trend. Prices might be on the downhill trend, but the people in the hobby are still here and still love it. And I always, like I say on this show, Jeff, if prices come down, that's an opportunity to get some stuff that maybe you couldn't think about purchasing prior. So it's not always, about, hey, I need everything to be worth $1 million, or, we all want our stuff to be worth as much as possible. But, when prices sort of cool down and kind of correct themselves, it's a great opportunity to get some stuff that maybe was not out of our reach. And, it's a roller coaster, right? It'll come down, and then certain things will crescendo up. So it's just ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and I've seen that a lot in sports over the years. You've seen that a lot in baseball. Back in '94, we had the strike. A lot of people walked away, swore they weren't going to follow baseball again anymore, and then a lot of those people have come back. You've seen that in a lot of sports. I saw that in NASCAR. I got into NASCAR during its heyday when it was really exploding. And I catch myself a lot drawing a lot of parallels because I think that's true. Back when I started covering NASCAR, it was the hottest thing going. I mean, it was getting so big that a lot of people felt like it was right there in the same category as football, baseball, and basketball. It's not that way anymore. It's dropped off tremendously, but I covered all of that. I saw that sport rise from being a regional thing to a national phenomenon. And I kind of see a lot of parallels there, to what's happening in the hobby right now. I mean, it has really exploded in growth and value, and all the wealthy investors getting into the sport. It's like the thing to do right now. If you're into sports, or you're an investor like that, it's the hottest thing going right now. And that's kind of the way it was in NASCAR back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You saw all sorts of celebrities, sports celebrities, from, Reggie Jackson and Terry Bradshaw and Troy Aikman and all these people jumping into the sport because it was so hot at the time. And I see the same thing happening right now in the hobby. You have a lot of athletes getting involved in it. You've got a lot of wealthy investors, and it has just sparked the boom era that we're sort of enjoying right now. But as you said, we're starting to see it, decline a little bit in certain areas, particularly in the modern cards and stuff like that. So
you are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. We'll be right back after this break.
For nearly 50 years, Sports Collectors Digest has been the voice of the hobby, bringing you comprehensive coverage of the sports collectible industry. From industry news, auction results, market analysis, and in-depth stories about collectors and their collections, Sports Collectors Digest has everything you need to know about the hobby. SCD is also your leading source for listings of sports collectible dealers, card shops, card shows, and the latest from the industry's top companies. To check out all the latest news or to subscribe to the hobby's oldest magazine, visit sportscollectorsdigest.com or call 1-800-829-5561.
We are back.
There are ebbs and flows. I think that's a good parallel. We see that in a lot of sports. We've seen it in baseball and other sports, and it's inevitable that it's going to happen in the hobby as well. But I think in the last couple of years we've sort of set a precedent and gotten to a level that I think we're really going to sustain for a while. Maybe not the prices we've seen. Maybe it still dips a little bit, but I definitely think the hobby's alive and well and here to stay for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. And, whenever I hear somebody, someone in the hobby say, the hobby's dying out, I just kind of shake my head, or I'll even chuckle sometimes, like, just because prices go down doesn't mean the hobby's dying. It just means the market is sort of, on certain things, is correcting itself. And we've seen, like you said, things go down. The same items can go back up too. We forget a lot of this stuff is performance based too. So, we've seen guys, have a great game or great, run of a few weeks, and their stuff starts to rise back up again. So it's really a performance based market, especially and with the current players, and the vintage and that high end stuff. I don't want to say it's been unaffected. It's been affected, but it's been less affected, like you said, in comparison to, the modern or ultra modern level. We're still seeing, it just seems like every other day, right, a new auction record or private sale record. And, that's an indicator, even though it's a high end part of the hobby that few people really partake in, it's still part of the hobby. That's the other thing we need to recognize. While maybe me and you aren't buying a Mano for $12.6 million, it's still sold for that from someone who's in the hobby. Maybe their bankroll's different than ours, but it's still the hobby. And to not acknowledge that is disingenuous. So and that trickle, that's a trickle down effect, right? Because that 9.5 Mano that you mentioned at this year's National, what it brings affects the grades starting from 9.5 and down, and that will that all matters. And it's like that on every card. It kind of sets the tone. So stuff is cooled off, but the hobby itself is growing. You've seen that on going from the Chicago National to the Atlantic City You probably noticed that. Now, I mean, talk about your hobby background. Like, when did you collect cards when you were a kid? Like most folks, that typical story.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, I loved it when I was a kid. I started, when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I loved sports so much, loved everything: football, baseball, basketball. And then when I discovered cards, I don't remember the precise moment that it was, but I know that when I covered cards, discovered baseball cards in particular, I had to have them. Every time we went to the grocery store or the drugstore, I had to have a pack of cards. I was kind of like that kid you've always heard about on the cereal aisle, who whines and cries and has got to have the cereal box that has the best prize in it. I was that way with cards. I had to have a pack of cards at the checkout counter at the grocery store. So my mom bought me a pack of cards every time I was there. I usually ripped those things open before I even got to the car. I loved it, and I would get more packs when I would go back. And, when you're a kid, you don't think about value and you don't think that you're collecting. They were toys and you played with them. So we traded them and we flipped them. And I used mine, I would organize them in all sorts of different ways to create different batting lineups and different fantasy teams. And this was back before we even knew what fantasy sports was. Yeah. And I kind of used my cards to create my own little fantasy world for sports, for baseball. And then I discovered football cards and I collected those, and basketball cards. And, and I would keep these things, I didn't really take care of them. We played with them. You handled them all the time. And I kept mine in shoe boxes. And so I had shoe boxes full of them. And I love those things. I really did. And, and then you get older, you get to be a teenager and you're playing ball and you're chasing girls and you're doing all these things and you sort of get away from it a little bit. But then when I was in college and a little bit after college, I had a couple of uncles who collected cards, and they were also dealers. They would go to the local flea markets on the weekends, and they would deal baseball cards. And so every year at birthdays and Christmas and stuff like that, they would kind of gift me a box of cards. So I accumulated quite a few sets of Fleer and Donruss and score cards. I had more score sets than I knew what to do with, and still got a bunch of them that, I can't believe I still hung on to. But went through that phase for 4 or 5 years where I accumulated a lot of cards that way. And then, you get busy. You move on with life and you start your career and that sort of thing. And I kind of got away from it a little bit. But what was interesting is that, I jumped heavily into the sports media side of things. And I started covering sports. I went to journalism school at the University of South Carolina. And I knew early on, I think I even knew in high school that what I wanted to do. And, two things that I loved most were writing and sports. So I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do. So I went to school and I started working for some newspapers while I was in college. And then when I got out, I bounced around a little bit and, covered a little bit of everything, covered preps and college sports, and just always had my hand in it in some way, in some form or fashion. And then I got into NASCAR kind of by accident, certainly not, wasn't on my radar. It was just something that sort of happened. I started covering a little bit for a small paper I was working for, and it kept opening new opportunities. So I got an opportunity to move to Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's where I am now. I've been here probably almost 30 years now, but I covered a little NBA. I covered a little bit of NFL when the Carolina Panthers got into the league, and then I started covering NASCAR full time, and I wound up running a magazine called NASCAR Scene, which at the time was the largest motorsports publication in the country. And through that, I got to do quite a bit of traveling. They had racetracks all over the country, and I got to do that. And through the course of that, I got to continue to sort of fulfill my love for sports. A lot of times I would pick the events I would go to based on what ballparks I could get to. I think I've been to something like 25 ballparks all across the country. And as I moved up a little bit and began running the magazine, I got to pick my trips. And that's how I'd pick my trips every year. I'd been to all the races. That was kind of, no big deal anymore. So I got the baseball schedule out every year and looked and said, okay, who's home? And, I want to go to this race and this race and this race. And I would hit as many ballparks as I could. And, I got to go to Fenway and Wrigley and Dodger Stadium and a lot of great places through my travels. And I would pick up a pack of cards here and there every now and then. If you'd see them at the ballpark or somewhere around there, I might pick up a pack of cards. But, I did that for a long time.
Time to step aside for a quick moment, but we'll be right back with more with Jeff Owens.
Are you a new sports cards collector or someone returning to the hobby? Maybe you're just looking for a friendly, trustworthy hobby community to hang out with and enjoy collecting. Midwest Box Breaks has been bringing collectors together for many years with affordable breaks, helpful threads, and a Discord group packed with generous people who genuinely care about the hobby and other collectors. Check out the breaks at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Our goal is to bring you as much value as possible. Also, find us on Twitter at Midwest Box Breaks.
Hey folks, John here. Just wanted to remind you, use the discount code MBB10 for 10% off your first order at MidwestBoxBreaks.com. Welcome back. Let's continue our conversation with Jeff Owens from Sports Collectors Digest.
And then after that, I wound up at the Sporting News, which was kind of a dream for me at the time because, I read, I'm sure you probably did too. I read Sporting News when I was a kid. And, I was talking about collecting as a kid. The other thing that I collected as much as cards were magazines, sports magazines.
Yeah.
I got Sports Illustrated every week. I got the old Sport magazine every week. I got Sporting News every week. And I just devoured those things. I would read them from cover to cover. I saved them. I had.
Hey, not to cut you off, Jeff. Before social media, that was social media. That was how we got a lot of our information, other than newspapers and box scores. As sports fans, as younger folks, that's how we, like you said, that's how we got our information. We didn't have, ESPN and hey, we're outside the locker room and breaking news. That was ESPN. That was Twitter, Instagram, Facebook before those existed. So I'm right with you, but go ahead.
Yeah, it still blows my mind that a lot of people back in those days, that's how Sporting News was how you would get your box scores.
Yeah.
If your local paper didn't carry the box scores, you got Sporting News and it would have every box score from every game from that week. That just blew me away. And I would play with those just like I did cards. I would study those statistics and, create lineups and do all this stuff. So I collected sports magazines as well as I did baseball cards. And, I had shoe boxes full of cards, and then I had bigger boxes just full of magazines. I had my closet was stacked with those things. And, eventually, you move on and your mom gets rid of all that stuff. So I kind of wish I still had them. But, when I got the opportunity to go to Sporting News, that was kind of a dream for me because I had read that magazine my whole career. And I was there for 4 or 5 years and really enjoyed my time there. But while I was there, we kind of saw, the sad evolution of magazines while I was there because, while I was there, Sporting News went from a weekly magazine to a bi-weekly magazine to a monthly. And then sadly, the print edition eventually went away and we went all digital. And, that's kind of, where the industry has gone over the course of time. And that was kind of sad. But, I was there for 4 or 5 years, and then I got a chance to run a college sports magazine for a few years. That was a lot of fun. And then during the pandemic, I was looking around at some different options and got an email one day from about Sports Collectors Digest. And that really piqued my interest a whole lot. I had read it some as a kid. I didn't subscribe to it, but sometimes you could find it on the newsstand.
Yeah.
And I would get it, and I would get Beckett, and I would get the old Tough Stuff magazine, which we owned that for a while. I used to get those. So, the opportunity to go to work there and jump back into the hobby was fascinating to me. It was something that, I was really excited about, and so I jumped at that opportunity to get in it, and it was great timing, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I don't have to tell you, I don't have to sell this to you, but for those that don't know, and some are going to be nodding their head in agreement here that they've been around a while. Sports Collector Digest, I believe 1983, if my memory serves me correct, when they started. I remember as a young collector first, then I did my first show at 15, so I was still young, but I remember buying that publication. They had all the shows listed. It was really, to my knowledge, the only publication at the time that listed literally all the shows. It had some pricing, but it was very informative. There was interviews and articles, and I remember the one thing that sticks out, Jeff, to the original was what the paper was made of. It was very thin, and it had like a newspaper in a magazine sort of feel. I always thought that was kind of neat, and I would pick it up and read the articles, check out what shows. At that point, I was starting to travel and do shows, and just see which ones I could either to set up at, or even just to go and maybe buy some stuff. And it was a great resource. So it has a long history. Here we are, 39 years later, and it's still going. And that, like you said, there's something to be said about that when you've seen a lot of other publications not exist anymore. Tough Stuff, you mentioned, they're gone. I wrote a little bit for them as a younger man, and they're no longer around. And Beckett's still around, but they've sort of kind of changed direction of what they're known for and how they operate. And they've transitioned a lot online. Sports Collectors Digest is online too, but I think you're bringing your experience, and I think you're really up in the game. I know, and going on the site, like there's more. You're staying on top of the news and breaking a lot of news and being the first to cover stories. And I think that's important, right? People want to go, whether they get it in print form or they get it in online electronic form. They want it to be fresh. They want it to be current. And kudos to you and your staff, because I think you've sort of brought it back to that. I think there's a time period there when maybe that wasn't the case, or not as much. Let's just put it that way. And I think you're getting it back, to its proper place and really at the forefront. Kind of speak to that, like your vision, kind of what coming in. You're not new to sports. You might be a little new to hobby, but you still have a hobby background too. You also, I want to give you I don't know if it's a secret, but you can correct me wrong too. You've written like some of the bios and stuff on, what was it, Max cards, right? For NASCAR.
Yeah, I did back in the early 2000s. Max and another company called I think it was Action Performance, maybe. They put out some sets of NASCAR cards, and they advertised in our magazine every week. So they called me up one day, and they were looking to put out some new sets, and they asked me, hey, do you know anybody that would like to, write the copy that goes on the back of these cards? And I said, yeah, I thought about it, and I looked around the room. We had a pretty large staff and a pretty large newsroom, and I'm like, who would be perfect to do that? And the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I want to do that myself. That'd be cool, because, I think I may have been probably the only person there. There might have been a few others that collected a little bit as a kid, but that was kind of right up my alley. So I started doing that. I did that for 3 or 4 years. Max and the other company put out cards, and, they'd send me a list of drivers and tell me what they needed, and I would put together the copy that went on the back of those. But that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Hey everybody, have you heard about Collectible? It's the one-stop shop where any collector can buy and trade affordable shares in some of the most rare and valuable sports cards and memorabilia in the world, starting from just $5. From 1952 Mickey Mantle PSA 10s in Wilt Chamberlain's iconic rookie uniform to one-of-one Patrick Mahomes RPAs, rare LeBron James logo mans, and everything in between, Collectible is creating never-before-seen access and opportunities for all. Let's grow the hobby we love together. Please note this is not a recommendation or solicitation to buy any security. All investment decisions should be undertaken after doing your own research.
Sports Card Nation has returned.
I guess one of the reasons that Sports Collectors Digest was attracted to me is more my magazine and journalism background per se than the collecting. So I was fascinated by that too, because like I said, I had read the magazine as a kid and remembered it. And, this was the third magazine that I went to work for that I read and subscribed to or read regularly as a kid. And that was kind of cool to me because we are in an era where we're seeing magazines fall by the wayside. And, everybody's going digital these days, and everybody gets their news in different forms. But one of the things that fascinated me by Sports Collectors Digest is that it hadn't changed a whole lot over the years. And that's good and bad. That, the good thing is it brings back a lot of memories, and people remember what it was like. And we still have a lot of subscribers today who have been reading it for 40 years or so. We celebrate our 50th anniversary next year, and there's guys who've been subscribing for that long. I hear from them all the time, and I get it's amazing to me. Some of these guys, some of our subscribers are so old that they don't really know how to do email and stuff. So I get a tremendous volume of handwritten letters in the mail. And that's fascinating to me. I'll get a big bulky letter, and it'll be a 10-page letter from this guy who's been a subscriber for 40 years. And he's telling me all the great things about the hobby and all the bad things. And, sometimes they'll send you a card or they'll send you a photo or something. And that's fascinating to me. And when I was looking at taking this job, one of the things that really struck me was that there's parts of the magazine that really hadn't changed a whole lot in those years. You look at some of the ads that are in there, and they're from dealers that have been around forever, and their ads look almost like they did back in the 70s. And that was exciting to me. I love that. That was, picking up that magazine for the first time in about 25 or 30 years and flipping through it was almost like opening a pack of baseball cards from the 70s, because it kind of still looked that way a little bit. But by the same token, that presented a great opportunity for me to come in and maybe update things and change the philosophy a little bit. Not a great deal. One of the things, you mentioned this, that we've really tried hard to strike a balance is keeping up with the news and the corporate side and what's going on, all the records, all the people entering the hobby, the partnerships, and all of this stuff that's evolved over the past couple of years, while at the same time trying to keep the old school stories that subscribers love, stories about collectors, collections and old sets and that kind of stuff. So we have to strike a good balance between all that stuff. So that's what I'm trying to do right now is, put a lot of attention into not only the magazine, but into our digital platforms. We're trying to grow the website, our social media platforms. And, one of the most fascinating things, and you and I talked about this a good bit at the National, when I took this job, I knew kind of what I was doing as far as magazines, but I had a lot to learn and a lot to catch up on in the hobby. I hadn't been around it really in about 25 years. So I had a lot of catching up to do. And I had to think about, okay, how am I going to learn this as quickly as possible? And what I wound up doing, and I started looking around, and there really wasn't a whole lot of websites that was covering it from a news standpoint. Sports Collectors Daily is out there. I think Rich does a really good job with what he does, but that was about it. I couldn't really find any other sources. So I started looking around, and I started listening to podcasts. I started watching the YouTube channels. I discovered you. I discovered Dr. Beckett, Mike Morningham, and all these great guys out there who are doing a fabulous job in that world, as podcasters and YouTubers. And I learned a lot doing that. That's really how I got my reintroduction to the hobby, is by listening to you guys, because I really, I took this job and I had to go to school fast. I had a lot to learn in about 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm still learning. But that's how I did it, by listening to you guys. And that's been a great resource for me.
Well, I got good news, Jeff. Here's the thing. The hobby, the news cycle, it changes so fast that we're all learning. So we're learning right along with you. Like I was going to mention, in the when Sports Collectors Digest was in its early days, the news cycle in the hobby was fairly slow. It would probably be harder to, like, hey, what are we going to write about, in this issue? Nothing. There's not a lot of news, right? But in today's hobby, it's a whole new world. There's mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, delays. Then you got the pandemic, supply chain issues. The National is nothing like what it was in its infancy years. It's an event in itself. So now the stories are I think that, a publication went from like, what are we going to write about, to like, hey, how big is this issue? How big do we want this issue actually to be? What's going to make the cut? And maybe what do we kind of put on the back burners, at least for this issue or for now? And that's, I guess that's a good problem to have. And so I think it makes it a little more difficult. It's always going to be challenges, right? No matter what era you're doing it in. But I guess the good part is there's no shortage of news like I think there used to be. And I don't want to make it sound like there wasn't any news, but when you compare the eras, the news cycle now is definitely a lot more active. You got a lot more people in the hobby doing a lot of different things, and so there's a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, and that part I think makes your job a little bit easier, but it's still difficult because, like you said, you're battling that, the online versus print. But you guys have been around a long time. You're still going. Like you said, you have a lot of loyal folks that have been there from inception. And that I think is a testament to the publication, right? You got to be doing something right when you're around, 40 plus years and have people from inception still going with you. I mean, that's a testament to you guys. And now you're bringing your expertise sort of, I'll say it, to really kind of modernize and bring it up to speed.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Like you said, there's definitely no shortage of stuff to write about. And the challenge now really is, we're putting almost as much content in a week on the website as we are in the magazine. And the challenge now is figuring out, what goes in the magazine and what we have to leave out, because, you don't have unlimited space and you have to make some pretty hard decisions. And really, it's gotten to a point where they're almost two separate products now, because a lot of people that subscribe to the magazine, they might check out the website every now and then, but a lot of them are just magazine subscribers. They still love getting it, and they still love getting certain kinds of content. They still love reading about the collectors and the collections and the old stuff. And then online, we try to keep it a little bit more modern, keep up with the news, and kind of give you a little bit of everything. But it's changed a lot.
Time for a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Zion cases are the best card cases in the hobby. One quick walk around the National or even your local card show will bear that out. Whether it's a case to protect your one single Grail card or to hold and protect many of your precious cards, look no further than the Zion cases. And don't forget, our backpack cases have no equal. Check us out at www.zioncases.com and remember to use promo code SCN10 to save an additional 10% off your order. Zion Cases, we protect the hobby.
Let's go! You are listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast.
You know, the hobby, like you said, it's changing every single day with a lot of news and a lot of stuff going on, new people coming in, new money and all that. So it's a challenge to keep up with, but it's a lot of fun. You know, I've always been the type that I like being busy, and I like for a lot of things to be happening. You know, that kind of keeps the juices flowing and keeps you motivated, you know, when there's news to write about and new developments. And we've seen that in journalism over the past decade too. It's just evolved so much with the rise of social media and websites and all that versus print. And, you know, it's been a fascinating evolution. And, you know, again, that's another great parallel with the hobby. You know, it's changed right along with that. And, you know, today, you know, you used to get your magazines and, you know, your newsletters and stuff, but now a lot of people, you know, get their information and stuff through you guys, through podcasts and YouTube and all that. And I think it's great that there's all these different avenues to enjoy the hobby, you know, whether it's a magazine or a podcast or YouTube or social media or whatever. There's so many different ways to enjoy the hobby today. And I think that's great. And I think that just adds to the passion that people have for this hobby.
Yeah, no doubt. I think room for everybody, and you know, people who are putting out stuff that people enjoy, whether it be in publication form, whether it be in audio form, whether it be in digital form. Those that put out that good material will survive through that and keep going. I think that's where we are, and it's fun, like you said. And I got to ask you, kind of coming back and you know, you being to the two nationals, has it rekindled your collecting bug at all?
It has. It definitely has. I would say right now I'm still sort of dabbling. I'm dabbling in a little bit of everything. The first thing I did when I jumped in, you know, I started thinking about that. Okay, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to collect? And I was excited about jumping back into, and I started with baseball. You know, I've collected some Topps baseball stuff the last couple of years. You know, I've gotten the Series 1 complete sets. I really like the Heritage product, that series. I bought that last year, but I've sort of dabbled in everything, and I've tried to get my kids involved. My daughter is a big baseball fan and a big football fan, and she plays fantasy football and that sort of stuff. Yeah. So her and I have bought some football stuff. We've opened some packs, and we've kind of started a couple of binders with football cards. One of my older sons is a big hockey fan, so he started doing that. He got him an account on ComC, and he buys up a lot of hockey cards. So we've been doing that together. But the thing that I started thinking about, okay, I think I want to, we were reading about this, and we've had a lot of stories in the magazine about set builders, people building complete sets. So I started thinking about, I think I want to try that. So what am I going to do? What's the set I'm going to collect? So, and that took me back to my childhood, and I started thinking about those cards I used to open. So I started looking at a lot of sets from the 70s. And the set that I first really recognized, I would say, the first set that I started looking at, and I knew every single player in that set. And I not only knew all the players, but I recognized those cards. I know that I collected all those cards as a kid because I remember almost every single one of them. And that's the Topps 1973 set. Not one of your most valuable sets, but, I was 10 years old at the time. And that was the time that I was really into it and really loved those cards. And I still had some of them still in a shoebox. I still had the 1973 Hank Aaron card. I had the 73 Pete Rose and some of my other favorite players that somehow survived all those purges and moves and your mom throwing them out and all that. I still had a handful of those. So I decided that's what I was going to do. So I'm sort of slowly working on that. kind of just getting started. I picked up about 50 cards from 73 at the National this time. So that's kind of where I'm going right now. And one little interesting side story along those lines, I've written 2 or 3 columns in the magazine about 73 in that set. And I wrote a column a few months ago about a card that I kept running across as a kid of a guy named Eddie Brinkman. He was a shortstop for the Detroit Tigers, great defensive player, couldn't hit a lick. And he was one of the most odd-looking baseball players I've ever seen in my life. He looked like a high school science teacher. He wore glasses. He choked up on the bat just to a ridiculous extreme. And this guy looked like he couldn't hit a softball. But it seemed like every time I opened a new pack of cards, there he was. I had more Ed Brinkman cards than anybody in the world, and I was convinced that, Topps was doing this on purpose. Every pack I got had an Ed Brinkman card. And, and I didn't really like this guy. I thought he was odd looking. He's not a ball player, but there he was in every single pack. So I wrote a column about this and kind of had some fun with it. And over the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think I got maybe 5 or 6 letters from subscribers who wrote me a letter saying how much they loved that column. And inside that pack, in that envelope, was another Ed Brinkman card. So I have now started my collection with multiple.
So what you're saying, Jeff, is you're an Ed Brinkman super collector.
I guess I am. Didn't set out to do that, but I guess he's my guy now. But I probably own more Ed Brinkman cards than anybody. But again, that's the fun thing about collecting. You run across cards that wind up being interesting or special to you for some reason, because they keep popping up, or you learn something about that guy. And that's the other thing I used to love about the old cards. They had the stats on the back, but they also told you a nice, interesting little tidbit that you otherwise might not have ever known. And I think those 73 cards had the cartoons on the back. And I love stuff like that. So that's my mission right now. That's where I am. I'm looking to put together a 73 Topps baseball set. And then I'm just sort of dabbling in other stuff. I still, love opening packs with my kids, and we'll buy boxes and open them and start a little semi-collection here and just kind of see where it goes. So, not too much into the high-end stuff. That's still a little out of my range, but I do enjoy it, and it's been a lot of fun. And that's been another fun part of this adventure for me is, I not only get to put together a magazine again, another sports magazine, which are also, by the way, sort of becoming collector's items themselves because they're becoming rare. But you get to collect other stuff and participate in it. All these other sports I covered, football, basketball, NASCAR, I couldn't climb in a car and race it. I couldn't go out on the baseball field and take batting practice, but I can collect. And that's what makes this fun. You get to not only cover it from a media journalism standpoint, but you get to participate in it. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, the best of both worlds. You mentioned your daughter, your son's starting to do different things, hockey, football, and collecting themselves. You starting with the 73s, and who knows where you wind up going. That's the other beautiful thing too, Jeff, is you get to kind of pick. You're the CEO of your own hobby journey. You get to pick and choose what direction you want to go or don't want to go, and there's a lot of fun just in the decision process itself. And, that's like I said, there's no wrong way of the hobby as long as you're doing everything above board, and you can pivot, you can change your mind and go in all sorts of different directions. And it's great to see you. And I got to warn you, it gets worse the longer you stick around. So, it's fun experimenting. It's fun experimenting with this stuff too. I'd never heard of hockey cards before. I don't think I'd ever seen a hockey card until I jumped back in a couple of years ago. And now I'm fascinated with that. I've picked up some NASCAR cards.
I've been meaning to buy some wrestling cards. I want to do that. And so it's just, it's interesting, learning about what different people collect and why. And then it makes you want to participate and experiment a little bit in yourself. So that's why I say I'm still dabbling. I'm kind of trying to experience a little bit of all of it and see what really captures my attention and what I want to continue.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, and then you find what direction you want to really dig your heels in and have fun with it. Right at the end of the day, that's what it should be all about. And it's going to be fun to see what you do, and we'll have to trade stories about what you get and what you get. Right, it's the stories behind the cards.
Time to hear from one of our great sponsors, but Sports Card Nation will be right back after that.
Iron Sports Cards is your #1 source for all your PSA and other grading submissions. Their elite status improves turnaround times. Heck, they even provide the card savers. Their chat rooms provide updates on all your submissions. They also offer wax options and single cards to cover all the bases. Check them out on Facebook at Iron Sports Cards Group or on the web at ironsportscards.com. Or even give them a call at 1-877-IRON-PSA. Rob's got you covered.
Thanks for sticking with us. Let's return to the show.
I'm excited to announce on this episode, and thank you, Jeff. I'm going to here shortly going to be doing a column for Sports Collectors Digest, and I did write for Tough Stuff a little bit back when they existed, so I'm not completely green, but again, like you said, to write for a publication that you read, in my case, as a younger person, is, a thrill for me, and I'm really looking forward to it and thankful for the opportunity. So,
we're really excited about this too. It's and it's a great, very natural partnership, I think, because your podcast, you're the hobby is the people, and Sports Collectors Digest for years has been the voice of the hobby. So I think it's a great partnership. It's going to be, I think readers are going to love it. And the thing that I keep hearing from readers that they want more of is more stories about collectors and the people in the hobby. And that's what you do so well. And that's what we're trying to do. So I think this is a perfect partnership. And I think our readers are going to really enjoy it. I know I'm excited about it. I can't wait for them to see your first column, which is a really good column that's going to appear in our next magazine. It comes out in a few weeks, and kind of how you got started and how you got into all this. So I think people are going to enjoy that, and then we're going to go from there. We're going to tell some stories about great collectors and people in this hobby, and I think that's going to be a great addition to our magazine.
I hope so. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm glad you're an editor. I'm going to make you work a little bit, I think. Hopefully not too much, but I'm glad you're going to be proofreading these and looking them over and doing them right. And it's always nice to sort of have that behind you, but it's going to be fun. And like you said, right, the stuff that goes on in the trenches, the front lines, that's where it really sort of all starts. And, voice of the hobbies the people, like you said, it just seems to, it's like a puzzle piece almost, right? It connects, and, it's going to be fun, and a lot of different directions to go. That's like we talked about, right? There's so many different stories. It's not like, hey, we don't have enough material. It's what do we want to cover? What do we want to talk about? And that's a good problem to have. So
and we were talking about the National earlier, but one of my favorite things. I wrote a column about this, a month or so ago, but one of my favorite things at the National this year is, we spent a tremendous amount of time chasing news and talking to people and spending time over on the corporate side, because, that's where all the big news is and where, the stuff is happening. And that's all part of the job, right? it's stuff you got to do. But my most enjoyable part of the National was meeting you guys, coming to that media gathering, the content creators gathering on Thursday night over at the Sheridan, and meeting you, meeting Dr. Beckett, meeting Mike Morningham and Brad and Val and all of you guys, that the content creators, because you really are in the trenches and you guys really are the lifeblood of the hobby. And you're just like, you're collectors, you just happen to be content creators, but you're collectors first. And that's what the hobby is all about. And that's the people that our magazine covers. And I think sometimes we get a little bit too caught up in covering the news and covering the corporate side and the records that are being set and where all the money is being spent and all those things. And we can't lose sight of the fact that this hobby is really about, as your podcast says and my magazine says, it's about people. It's about people who do something they love, and it's about collectors. That's the lifeblood of the hobby. And I really enjoyed that. And that sort of really kind of reemphasized that for me. And I think that's, part of what led to you and I doing this together. That's the most important part of what we do is covering the people in the hobby, I believe.
Yeah. Without them, right, there is no hobby. Like,
that's right.
Obviously the cards are the bloodline, right? But it's that grassroots starts with the people. If we didn't exist, right? Neither would the hobby. So
there wouldn't be any cards without us, and there wouldn't be any magazines, and there wouldn't be any podcasts. So
so I think it starts there. I think it's a great analogy by you. So again, looking forward to it. You're definitely gonna have to check my work for darn sure.
That's all.
So
right.
hopefully I won't make you work too hard.
Yeah.
But
you're a storyteller, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You tell stories, and talking about it and writing it in print, it's pretty much the same thing. So a good story is a good story, no matter how you deliver it. So we'll get it out there, and we'll do a good job.
Well, I appreciate it, Jeff. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for being a supporter of the show. Even before that, it means a lot to me. Give out where people can either reach you or Sports Collectors Digest, where they can, get that either, by mail or the digital content and all that. You got all the time you need. Get that information out there.
Yeah, just go to sportscollectorsdigest.com. It's all there. We have a link to where you can subscribe to the magazine, and there's special offers on there. We do also offer a digital publication that's a good bit cheaper. You can check that out as well. And we keep up with all the news and stuff there. On Twitter, we're at SCD Magazine. You can also reach me on Twitter at JOwens_Jeff. You can catch me there. And my email address is JOwens@aimmedia.com. Send me an email if you have a story idea, anything we can help you with. We're always open to you. Check us out. We'd love to see you reading our products and checking us out and engaging with us. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, and what's on your mind. And we love engaging with people in the hobby. And we try, as our logo says, or our slogan, we try to be the voice of the hobby. So reach out to us and tell us what's on your mind.
Yeah, well said, and very important, right? I always say, give me feedback. That's how we get better. That's how we improve. So, it just makes all the sense in the world. Well, Jeff, thanks again, and I'll be talking to you soon, and have fun. And any questions on any of that hobby stuff, let me know.
All right. Thanks, John. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome catching up with Jeff. I had a great conversation with him at the National. And so, sometimes you meet people in this hobby, in life, right? Real down to earth. And Jeff is epitomizes that. So glad to get to know him as well as I have. And look forward to him, like we said, right? Even working with these columns. So check out Sports Collectors Digest, sportscollectorsdigest.com. I'm going to take one more quick break, But when we come back, some closing thoughts. Introducing the only auction house dedicated exclusively to the cards of the 1990s. Josh Adams and John Linden have created an auction company solely for the rare, scarce, and hard-to-find inserts and parallels of the 1990s. Whether it be basketball, baseball, football, or hockey, 90s auctions will have it. Each auction will consist of smaller lots between 100 and 120 lots, so your cards won't get lost in the shuffle. Founded on the principles of fairness, honesty, and integrity, 90s auction was created by collectors for collectors. Register and consign today at 90sauctions.com. That's 90 little s auctions.com. All right, that's it for episode 200. It's in the books. It's like a home run, right? Can't take it away from you. So we got it done. And again, I'll keep the closing short, but thanks everybody out there, whether it's a listener, a sponsor, a guest. This thing is a collaboration with a lot of people. Even though, you're just hearing my voice right now, it's over 180 guests. It's double-digit sponsors through the years, and it's thousands of you out there. And without every single one of those folks, we're not here for episode 200. And this is a lot of fun for me. This hobby is just a blast to be in. Get to travel a little bit, get to meet great people, and do fun and exciting stuff. And looking forward to writing the column for Sports Collectors Digest, and just still, who knows what's around the next corner. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you here very soon.
Always remember that the hobby is the people.